Right, thanks very much, Callum. Quick introduction, that's me. And what I'm going to tell you a bit about is I work for a consultancy called Sweco, which is a Swedish company. Guess that from the name, it's quite obvious. It's a multidisciplinary consultancy, so we're based all over Europe, and we've got offices here in Glasgow and one in Edinburgh, and I'm based in the Edinburgh. My job in Sweco is road safety engineering, and it's kind of different from what we might call normal stand types of engineering, and I'll come to that in a moment. The work we do is we do a lot of collision investigation work. We do a lot of work looking at road safety engineering, how to engineer out problems from roads, how to audit roads that are being designed and built, as Stuart had mentioned earlier. And we do a physical safety risk assessment when, as Malcolm's going to mention, is that sometimes we can't do exactly what we want to do, but we've got to try and pick the best of the rest to minimise the risks. And I've been doing this for about 30 years. And in that same time, I was 21 years as a special constable with Police Scotland. And Tayside Police, I was a cycle patrol officer on the community side in Kinross. If anybody here had been at tea in the park and seen cops on bikes, that was us. But latterly, last half of my time with Police Scotland, I was with traffic. And that's a bit more serious because instead of being the fun guy on the bike, we tend to be looking at things that happened with bikes and had gone wrong. And that's helped me in my professional life because it gives me a better understanding about what's going on the roads and how we can engineer things out because I see it firsthand. I'm a past chair of Society of Road Safety Auditors, and I'm going to mention a colleague that's sitting here, Richard. He is a current Scottish representative for the Society of Road Safety Auditors, and he'll be happy to take your questions later. But I feel like Billy Connolly when he talks about it's like singing in front of your aunties, you know, I've got somebody keeping an eye on what I say. Right. Getting away from all the ivory tower stuff, right? I'm like everybody else here, right? I'm a fifer, and we all say we're all Jock Tamson's bairns, right? We're all human. We've all got these connections. And that's a really important thing. It's an important thing in my life because of what I do. Because I realise that, you know, we're dealing with human beings and we're all connected. And there's big ripples that happen as a effect of what we do. And if we look at these ripples and we think, well, what's happened on the road? And this is where we're missing out a presentation because somebody who was speaking on Monday night covered this beautifully for me, and I could just skip by it. But just this section here, this is from Crash Map. You can go online and you can look at this, and you can show you all the crashes where they're happening for previous years. And there we go. That's in, I think it was 2023. I've got 2025, that's wrong. 2023. There was 3 fatal collisions where cyclists passed away. We're looking on that map about 4 million people there, maybe, population-wise. It doesn't sound much, does it? But then that's a person, and it's their family, and it's their friends, and it's their colleagues, their work colleagues, and all ripples go out. And that's the important thing. And then we start looking at a seriously injured collision person. A serious injury, in many cases, is life-changing. And then we have Ross talking about, you know, what happens, the support you have to get, the compensations, changing your life. So it's massive, right? And one person being hurt on the road is one too many. You know, we never sit there thinking that, oh, great, we've got the numbers down, we're happy with it. No, we've got to get down to 0. I'll probably never see it in my lifetime, but we have to aspire to get the figures down. So I mentioned what I did and how it's different from engineering. And this is an analogy I use to talk about engineering. And if we've got any engineers here, who'll be hating me in a minute, right? But if we talk about something like structural engineering, and you've got a building, it's like a bowl of fruit. Because when we sit in here, we can identify there's a column there. I know exactly what it does. I know what loads it should be able to carry and how it's going to behave when things go different. It's got a roof slab. So like the bowl of fruit, I can pick out all these little bits and I can see how they all work. Right, and that's great, right? Mechanical engineering, structural engineering, things like that, quite good. When we come to what I do, and we talk about road safety engineering, we still have main features. I love this monitor keeps going away. It's fantastic. We'll have these features that we can still pull out of what's happening, the environment around about us, maybe the weather conditions, the vehicles involved. But we've got a slushy there, and that's kind of like us, that's humans, because we've essentially got all the same ingredients, but they're all kind of mixed up and they all react differently with each other. And if I look around here, we're going to have people who are very competent cyclists, and some of you is maybe less competent. Some of you are great on certain types of roads, some of you on others. And that's like slush, it's all in there. So I can't sit as a designer and go, a cyclist. because it's a massive mixture. In the same way as a driver, you get good drivers having bad days. You have drivers that are taking medicines that they shouldn't be taking when they're driving, which affects their abilities, right? So my branch of engineering is possibly more like psychology, because we're looking at the person in the vehicle, the person who's a pedestrian, the cyclist, everything, and how they all interact. So I'm going to show you some of the things that give me the fear before I pass on to Malcolm to decide. He's going to explain how we design things. Cycle lanes. So I think this is in Halifax. If you enjoy cycling up hills, go down to Halifax. It's busy road, this, heavy goods vehicles, and they've got cycle lanes. And this type of thing happened a lot back in the millennium. Remember when the end of the world was coming at midnight and, you know, planes were going to fall out of the sky and everything. The government did a Millennium Cycleway thing, and they threw money to local authorities and went, build lots of cycle facilities for the millennium, but do it before March, right? And this has been touched on already by Scott. Okay, so what did they do? They went, there's a wide road, I can put a white line down the side of it, and that makes it great, and the cyclists will love us. Well, won't worry about the big roundabout, but you know, that's great. But even this, we talk about the campaign for giving 1.5 meters. A cyclist is going to be cycling more or less on the edge of that white line in the edge yards. Are people going to give them 1.5 meters? Because let's go back to the psychology of drivers. This is my lane, that's somebody else's lane. I'm not going to move away from them, right? So, yeah, don't like these things. I don't really think they're good safe-wise. Then we have barriers, pedestrian barriers in particular at junctions. We know that we'll have instances where cyclists will be turning left and a large vehicle. If you've been to London, you'll see it, the tippers going in and out of towns, turning left. There's nowhere to go. If that driver of that heavy goods vehicle makes a mistake, does not see you, there's nowhere to go. You're going to get crushed against that barrier. So again, you know, it's things that we're saying, look, we don't want infrastructure like this where we've got cyclists. The Dalkeith bypass, anybody here know the Dalkeith bypass? Opened back in about 2008 or something. Big downhill, it's about 2 miles downhill. A double white line, 2+1 a layout. So 2 lanes coming uphill, 1 lane going down a hill. We had Stuart talking earlier. What was the magic number where you can't cross the solid line to pass a cyclist? 10 miles an hour. Right, okay, with my ungodly frame, which is well out of shape these days, I could freewheel down there faster than 10 miles an hour. The visibility is fantastic for miles. Drivers can see there. And drivers will pass you. But the concern being is that we also mentioned that with a double white line system, most people know you get naughty void points on your license if you cross the double white line. So they'll tend to avoid brazenly passing you. They'll try and sneak past you, which is a close pass, right? So situations like this, so we see lots and lots of things around the road network. But then we come to the bit where Malcolm's involved and we do the audits and things and get involved in it, and it's a new infrastructure and it's great. You know, so this is between Pound Mill and Crooked Evan. They widened the path, so it's a shared path. It's great. It's connecting the 2 villages for cycling. Unless you're cycling there on a dreich Scottish day, as if that ever happens, and the traffic counter there, they came back and they put their control pillar for the traffic counter, that grey box, that kind of dreich, grey box on the cycle path as you're cycling along there, being dazzled by the wonderful LED headlights we have in cars, right? You know, these simple, you know, it's not hard. We're not talking rocket science here, is it? It's just sit back and think what might actually happen. We go down to Leven in Fife. If you're really keen, you can take a train to Leven now. Fantastic. New cycle path, footpath at the side, but they left the CCTV column in the middle of the cycle path. You know, there's nothing to mark you, nothing to guide you around it. You're just going to happen upon it with your face. And again, you know, step back, you know, think. So a lot of our work that we're doing with those safety audits is we get designs and we see things like this and we're saying designers, come on, you know, don't have that there. Or if it has to, if you can't move it, you need to mark it up. You need to make it visible so people can get around it. And then one of my favorite parts here, it's like a step to the right. So you'll be cycling along on the left, doing the time warp, over to the right, dodging the people in the pedestrian crossing, and the pedestrians, they just go straight into the car park. They're coming in the opposite direction. They don't even get a choice. So, you know, as we keep saying, it's not hard. And we get to Edinburgh, I just went down really storm on Monday night because it's Edinburgh. Leaf Walk. The mention thing about here is that there's no radiuses on the curves. Everything's done as a taper, which is great if you're on a unicycle. But if you've got a back wheel which follows you and cuts the corner, it's a problem. And then, you know, it's a pinch point. They've narrowed it down there. They've got a nice metal cover there, which will be nice and slippery when it gets wet. We've got a little, you know, electrical box right outside, just it'll catch your pedals as you're avoiding the person who's cutting the corner coming to work, you know. So many things, right? And as we keep saying, this is my life, right? We go about looking at these things and we're trying to get them out, design them out. Because many cyclists, everybody loves this sign. That's my favourite sign, right? It really is. Could you imagine cycling from John O'Groats to Glan's End and a mile out of John O'Groats, you see that sign? When are you allowed to get back on your bike, right? Anyway, that's the sign that designers uses to say, I don't know, right? I don't know what to do. And it is difficult and it is very complex. And what I've got is I dragged Malcolm here from Glasgow, so he's a local boy, to talk to you about some of the stuff we've been doing, because in my time as a road safety engineer and road safety auditor, I'm going to really set him up now. He's probably one of the better designers I've worked with, if not one of the best for cycle infrastructure. And he's going to talk about some of the work that hopefully you'll be aware of.
Think so. Can everybody hear me? Okay, we'll get the right way around. Okay, I'm Malcolm Hall. Work for Glasgow City Council. I'm an engineering officer and I'm the project manager, lead designer on the Connecting Woodside project. Some of you might be aware of it. One of the things that we'd look to do, first of all, obviously, is look to our design guides. Handily, Cycling by Design was updated in 2021. Unfortunately, the Connecting Woodside project first started in 2017. So we were relying on the 2010 version, which the principles didn't effectively change. The adaptability was the only one that got added in 2021, which made a bit of a change. But the sort of last top point there, the connected, closing the title, Connecting Woodside. So it's Scotland's first area-based active travel project. And it's looking at being part of Glasgow's city network. So we're looking to have a network of connected routes by 2031. And, you know, that's reasonably ambitious, but a mixture of segregated routes and low traffic streets. That's where Woodside sits, if people aren't particularly aware. And like I said, it's Scotland's first area-based active travel project. So looking at things a bit more holistically instead of an independent route, trying to work out which streets would be suitable for segregated infrastructure in terms of large volumes of traffic, the available width, that's also important, and then which streets can complement them with lower traffic. So for us, essentially, like the entire project area ended up becoming a 20-mile-an-hour zone, apart from the major A roads that we had through the project area. And then we're looking at things like the key trip generators. How can we get people to shops? How can we make sure they can access the swimming pool, the schools, all that kind of thing are right there in the kind of planning phase. And what's great is that there was Queen's Cross Housing Association was a major, or is a major housing stock owner in the area, and they had a kind of complementary project as well, which fit in quite well with what we were doing. Again, some of you might be aware of this route. It's Garscube Road, so the picture at the top, nothing there. Not a very nice place to cycle, not particularly welcoming. 4 lanes of traffic, lot of vehicles using that road per day. But you can see by looking at the picture down below, it doesn't take, take it on a sunny day, obviously. But, it doesn't take much to add in that separated, segregated infrastructure there, and providing you that buffer from what can sometimes be like not just high volumes, but like heavy vehicles and things like that as well. So what's the tools in the toolbox that we're going to use to design cycle routes? We're going to reallocate road space. Number one thing that you're going to do. You can't build a segregated cycle lane without taking some of the road space. Top picture, you'll see there that road 13 meters wide, something like that. It's a two-way traffic. It's not a 4-lane road at that point. So essentially you can add in the cycle lane there, still end up with a two-way road, have build-outs for bus stops, that kind of thing. So along with that, that'll help to reduce speeds by narrowing the road slightly. It's not the whole solution. You're not going to create a safe road by just doing that. There's some other things that you would want to use. So people that might have a relatively keen eye there, if you can see it, you might see the pedestrian sign on the lamppost. So it's sheltered housing right next to that. So this slide really is about traffic cam, and it's probably quite hard to see, but there's a raised table in there, a speed table. And the reason that we're putting that there is we know there's vulnerable pedestrians looking to go in and around that area, cross that road, access the bus stop, that kind of thing. So can we do that and help to do that safely? It's also a connection point to a quiet way route. So you want to slow that traffic on approach to potentially cycles crossing, leaving segregation and looking to enter into that quiet way network. Was there any success? Did we reduce any of the speed? I mean, numbers speak for themselves. That's 15 mile an hour reduction in the 85th percentile speed. I mean, that's taken right at that speed table. So, you know, it's slightly cheating. It's not the whole route, but, you know, it's still an impressive reduction in speed on that route. Right here, this is a commitment to prioritising walking and cycling by part of the route. So, again, if anybody's used this junction, you'll know that kind of travelling north to south, in the design stage, we always looked at that as being the primary movement. We had traffic counts done, cycle counts, and I think post, it totally bore out that that was exactly what was going on there. And that junction, if you're making that movement, you get roughly about 50% of the junction cycle time. And the reason for that is that you then phase the cycles in with traffic. So like it's really something that you want to try and do as a designer is look at how to make cycles and pedestrians move at the same time as traffic, because traffic's always going to get a lot of time. Where do we see the most accidents? Side road junctions, pretty much, you know, I would imagine a lot of people here have had incidents at a side road junction. So again, we can't control people's behaviour, but what we can do is try and use a set of tools to create a safer environment. So looking at this, what we've done is we've raised the carriageway, tried to highlight the cycle lane. You notice it's a bit more red through there, and that's through the use of chips in the asphalt, so like heavily chip it more. We won't use, as a local authority, we wouldn't use a screed. We wouldn't use a single multicolour asphalt, and that's purely for maintenance purposes. If somebody then cuts a track through it, we can't replace that. It ends up looking like a patchwork quilt pretty soon. And that's, again, that's operational sort of concern that we have to take into consideration. We've added markings, thermoplastic markings, two-way arrows, again, trying to let people know it's two-way cycle route. Some bollards to provide that vertical visibility. And this is at the access to an industrial estate. So at the bottom, you're having to design and cater for vehicles of that sort of size. And you'll see there that if you can see it, they're incredibly close to the edge of the cycle lane, and they're incredibly close to the other side of the road. There's not a lot of room there other than what's been installed effectively. We've also installed, if you can see in the background there, it's a cycle activated sign, which looks a little bit like this. As you cross over a loop in the carriageway, a bit of pressure sends a signal to that sign, which activates and flashes up. This isn't a solution. This is part of the tools in the toolbox. So if you're thinking about somebody like Dave Brailsford, looking at percentage gains, not looking at a complete solution, you're looking to try and put in something else that may help. So in this instance, at this location, what I was trying to think about was a right turning vehicle. That if you've got that two-way traffic in there, what I was concerned about was that the right turning vehicle waiting to make the turn wouldn't be visible, wouldn't have visibility of a cyclist coming up on the inside. I mean, they're looking about, and the best driver in the world may still miss that, especially on an adapted cycle, an e-cycle, something like that. Not saying that it's going to avert an accident at all, but it's going to give that potential. It's going to flash up. And if you catch that out your eye and you're aware, then you'll know there's somebody coming. Forgot to mention there, I just noticed it on the bottom there. It also counts cycle traffic as well. So geofunctional. Along this route, there's 14 points where we can count cycles, where they cross electric loops that are traffic signals as well, same sort of thing. And from there, what we can try and do is plan network connectivity a little bit better. We see where people are getting on, off the route. The numbers go up, go down, depending on that. A pretty staple design, cycle lane design, a floating bus stop, but relatively contentious. You know, the design itself, I mean, it's got a zebra crossing, a raised zebra crossing. It's got some tactile paving, slow markings. It's really pretty obvious what needs to be done there. If you're on a bike, you give way to somebody crossing to the bus stop. But not everybody, there's more vulnerable road users, particularly pedestrians, that don't really see that as being a safe piece of infrastructure. Now, that may be perception, might be behavior, but in terms of the design itself, you know, you could look to over-engineer, and I've seen some in Ireland that have put traffic signals in. You know, and if you're going to ignore a zebra crossing, why would you obey a traffic signal? You know, so it's trying to find a solution to a problem that could potentially be behavioural. The bottom picture is a design drawing. This is an organisational decision by Glasgow that we're going with. So the changes are you'll have a thermoplastic on the cycle lane with a pedestrian on it. You've then got actual give way markings at the zebra crossing instead of the usual markings, and some tactile paving in the cycle lane in case somebody strays off track and doesn't make it back to the footway. The shelter as well, that's a sort of important thing. Like with the design, you have to design for the situation. So in this location, you've got a high number of buses, but a low number of passengers. So in terms of the orientation of the shelter, I felt visibility was a better thing to go for in terms of, I wasn't concerned about people spilling into the cycle lane and trying to corral them by the back of a shelter. I was thinking more of, can we make sure that the visibility is good so that we don't have any interactions? Because when visibility is good, you've got a better chance of avoiding any kind of conflict. And then here again, I said earlier, it predates the Cycling by Design update. So not sure we would install this solution at this place. It's not a particularly favourable option. But in this location, there was a bus stop historically there. You've got two high-rise flats to the back, and you've not really got the space to the rear to provide a full floating bus stop. So with this, we looked at the bus border option. Now you've got 12 buses on this route, 1 an hour, and we did passenger counts. You get 24 on a day. It will vary, obviously, but on the days we counted, it was 24 people. So you've got two people either on or off the bus per hour at that location. As a designer, thinking about risk, thinking about what to do with that, likelihood versus severity. Severity, you know, it could be subjective, but the likelihood's very low. So that became, you know, not the greatest option, but one of the only options. And we haven't had any terms of negative feedback or any reported incidents. Again, the design drawing below is what we would do now. We'd only use it on the one-way cycle track, and you would have tactile paving, create an area shared space, give way markings on approach, ramped and raised up through the bus stop. So got to spot the difference. Again, does anybody know the junction? It's potentially used it before. So the one on the left, that's what you could have won. The one on the right was what you actually did get. So if you're looking at the changes, this came out of a road safety audit. So the design on the left has an island in the middle of the road. And the comment was, we're concerned about how can pedestrians find the crossing points with the stagger? What guidance measures are you going to use to get them to identify the crossing? And this the guidance measure is guardrail. That's what you would use. But in terms of knowing that that's not what we want to install, what we're going to do. So I'm going to try different things. In the drawing, it's shown is tactile paving. It's a guidance measure, should work, yeah. But we could do better. So in terms of that, we removed the stagger crossing completely when we rethought that. That provided enough space to add a green buffer strip down that side there, which really then led on to thinking about, well, wait there, can we shift the whole entire island down a little bit on the other side and put another buffer strip in and plant some trees? Well, yeah, turns out we could. Was the route successful? Numbers, really slow. It first opened 2021, so the numbers are relatively small. They grew quite a bit for a couple of years, and then we've got a little bit of work at the bottom, which may be affecting this, maybe not. But numbers are a bit different. So more cyclists, potentially more accidents. So we've kind of got the post, anything being there, relative, few accidents there. 21, 22, we'll start to get a couple of cycle accidents, which again is not something that you would be particularly surprised about. We've increased the numbers quite a bit. We're probably going to increase the accidents. But what I was interested in is, where were the accidents happening and what was happening? So they were happening at the side road junctions. Again, not surprising. Why don't we go back and have a look and see what else we can do here? So in terms of looking at that, we swapped those black bollards out for yellow ones, higher visibility. Put some cycles ahead, cycles crossing ahead, signage on the carriageway, and then just put in a couple extra signs there. But that's not going to particularly satisfy me in terms of, have we made it safe? So what we're doing at the moment is we're monitoring these junctions with AI technology, which uses 3D object recognition. It's based on your time to collision, the speed you're going at, things like that, and you can set those parameters. So a near miss effectively is subjective. Each person's going to have a different amount of distance that they're going to think is a near miss. So with this, you set the parameters in terms of what you want, and then it will give you the data. So what's coming next for Connecting Woodside? It's in construction right now, St George's Road. And one of the things that I did was learn the lesson from Garscube Road. The accidents were close to the side roads. So what's the best thing in terms of risk removal is to remove the risk. So we removed the risk entirely by taking out any uncontrolled interactions on the entire route. So you're signalised entirely. There's a trade-off there though. Those key design principles meant that the safety went up, but in terms of the sort of efficiency of the route, you're going to have to stop and start a little bit. For you guys, this might be a bit frustrating, but for somebody who's maybe 12 years old, goes to one of the schools or in and around there, or you're a parent of them, maybe that would give you a bit of comfort to let them cycle to school. Because for me, the driving principle there was that the kids that cycle today could potentially become the drivers tomorrow. And having that empathy for that situation may, over time, improve driver behaviour. Thank you.